Item B, verification of public notice and approval of agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ross, second by Jeanette. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item C, moment of silence. Item D, Wintona Area School District Strategic Plan.
Mission statement, building positive foundations for the success of our children.
Strategic directions, business and community involvement through internships, job shadowing, and mentorship. Improve work and people skills.
Develop parental contacts promoting school involvement.
Build productive relationships with the medical field to increase the support and open lines of communication to support students with mental health issues.
Develop marketing of the district and community through branding.
Item,
We're good.
we're good. Item E, recognition of persons wishing to address the board. Item F, student staff presentations, EL program, and access scores.
Eric's gonna help me out by rolling over that for you. He's got one. Just because you have it in front of you, but the graphs are in color on the presentation, it'll be easier for you to see. Typically, I invite, and I did invite the EL team to come here tonight. Unfortunately, none of them are able to make it, but I will, they have been a part of making this, and I'll answer any questions that you have to the best of my knowledge. Oh, look at that. And little family, those are my brothers.
Not yet.
That is not, they're not English learners. Or you can straight over, that's fine. There we go. Okay. So just a preface, I've given a similar presentation like the last 2 years, this is the third year. A couple of things that are different. Obviously, last year we had a lot of things with COVID that changed. One of those changes was our access data was still collected. Access data is the assessment we gave our English learners. However, it was pushed off a few months after it was normally given. So normally we give it in December and January. It was given in February and March. Out of the students we had, even with COVID, we had only 2 students that weren't able to test. One due to medical issues and one just due to some attendance and things getting them to school. So for the most part, we still have pretty accurate data in terms of where we're going. Just as a refresher, Access is the English language proficiency screener that we give. When students register in the district, they state what their home language is, and whether that's something other than English over half the time. We then go through the process of screening and identifying them as English learners. And they're screened on that screener and then in subsequent years in the 4 domains of English, listening, reading, speaking, and writing. This is something that's federally mandated for these students each year. So again, it's given to all students who are identified as English learners, that's kindergarten through graduation, or until they exit. Typically, in terms of scores, just so you can kind of interpret where you're looking at, students are given scores of 1 to 6. They do get decimals in between those, but they are categorized as to one of these 6 levels as a result of the test. Students who are either bridging or reaching are exiting the EL program, whereas students who receive a 1 to 4 continue to receive services. I thought this was interesting. As I looked at how many ELs we've had active in the last years since I've been involved, and even a little bit before that, we've had 88 students the last 4 years. Since you realize some of those students are graduating, some of them are exiting the program, then we also have kindergartners and some move-ins that come to the district as well. So this is, again, over the 4 scores. So the higher scores are from the bottom, whereas our students scoring at the lower levels are at the top. Obviously, reading is sporadic in terms of where there is, in terms of the levels that we see across the board. Listening is by far our best category. It's the first part of receptive language that students usually pick up as an English learner. And then the speaking and writing, obviously that's productive language, where we produce something. And so those are typical to be a little bit lower than the receptive language. Speaking consistently is our weakest over time. I did look a little bit at trends. It's hard to look at trends in EL data because it's really not, it's a similar population of students where you're going to have kids exiting things from year to year. I would say our speaking did go down a little bit last year as it was typical, but just given that students weren't in the regular education environment, especially as English learners, that was to be expected to some degree. So I'm just going to show you some numbers for each building just to kind of give you an idea. Unfortunately, the data that I really like to show you is our growth data, how we compare to other districts across the state, which we have been over the 50th percentile in terms of that each year. Fortunately, GPI is not calculating that this year. They're also not calculating student growth from year to year because of the COVID year and not all students testing. At Riverview, we have 1 full-time English language teacher as well as 1 full-time paraprofessional. Students at Riverview get pull-out instruction as well as push-in instruction on a daily level. Currently at Riverview, we have 27 students who are EL. None of those are monitored, meaning none of them have exited and are being monitored. That's typical at that age to not have exited at that point. And then we do have 6 new EL students. I believe 5 of those 6 are kindergartners. We have sub 1 who's a movement. Again, you're going to look at that overall, kind of showing where those students are showing proficiency towards English and in areas in which we still need to improve, similar with the district data that I showed you a moment ago. The state calculates what's called an on-track to exit metric for each student. In an ideal setting, they're looking at students, hoping to exit within 4 or 5 years of coming into the school system. Because a lot of our students come into us at the beginning of their education, we want them to be exiting by that 4th, 5th grade. Here you can see blue is the on-track goal set by the state. Green is our percent on track, yellow is the state's percent on track. So you can see we're well above the state at that lower elementary level in terms of making growth towards exiting. At Parkside, I did something a little bit different this year. I split the data into 4th and 5th grade and 6th through 8th grade separately. Because that 4th and 5th grade group is that group that's still kind of working to exit on time. And our 6th through 8th graders end up being more of our long-term ELs that we're trying to make progress with. Parkside, we have 1 full-time EL teacher. It looks a little bit different at the 4th and 5th grade level than it does at the 6th through 8th. So in 4th grade, we're still pulling them daily. When you get to 5th grade and then 6th through 8th grade, it's every other day. And the students who receive those services are now based upon some of the data that we collect on them. Parkside has 32 active EL students. They also have 18 students who are being monitored. That means they've exited within the last 2 years. So that's still work that Julie Pettibone does in terms of working with them, but they're not considered active ELs anymore. They're just in that 2-year monitoring. We have 4 new EL students. We have something a little bit unique to us. We have a newcomer in 8th grade from the Philippines. And so that is something we have not had in a while. So we're working to figure out how to best support that student. That's just not, one, it's a language we don't typically have, and 2, it's a situation in which we typically don't see. Here you can see listening. Almost all of our students are getting a 5 or 6, which would be beyond English proficient. So scoring is good or better than peers who are native English. Reading, again, you'll see we still have some students struggling at the 4th and 5th grade level, but it's obvious if we need to pinpoint where we need to work with these students more, it's in the area of speaking and then in writing. Here you can see our on track to readiness over time. The graph again goes from 2016-17 to last year. Again, we're not quite on goal, but we're well well above where the state average is that way. So at Park City, we had 15 total 4th and 5th graders. 8 of those 4th and 5th, 8 additional are getting monitored. 6 students exited out of the active English language program last year in 4th and 5th grade. 6th through 8th grade. So these are oftentimes students we would have liked to exit by that 4th and 5th grade mark, but that are still within the English language program. One note that I will make is across the board, the state sees a dip when you get to 6th grade. They have tasks in clusters by grade band, and the 6th through 8th grade test gets significantly harder than it was in 4th and 5th grade. So typically across the state, we'll see a little bit of a dip in 6th and 8th grade. 1, due to the test being harder, and 2, due to the kids who were doing well are no longer in the data, if that makes sense. Again, similar trends. At the high school, I was going to publicly recognize Beth Lindemeyer tonight, and she just emailed me after school that she was no longer able to come. But if you can kind of put yourself back in the place of all the pressures our teachers were having last year, with the different models we were having, and the COVID, and the virtual learners, she took on getting her EL license for us and taking all her classes amidst the last school year. So she entered into the C6 Right program. It started in the summer and then ended in May, and successfully achieved getting her EL certification. That was something that we helped her do, but something that took a lot of time on her part to accomplish. So she is now half-time EL, half-time world language. She pushes into our ELA classes at the high school, and then also offers English language support in the classroom for students. So currently at the high school, we have 14 active, 3 that are being monitored, 2 that are new. Another one of these students is a newcomer from Mexico, so first time in U.S. schools with a native language of Spanish. And then we had 6 students who graduated out of the program last year. And here's where their scores line up. Again, speaking is our lowest category. So overall conclusions, areas of strength. So I work with the EL team in the summer. We hope to move that more to the spring, but we didn't get the data until mid-late July. So we worked on individual plans for each student based on where they're at in those domains. We have increased staffing with Beth at the high school, as well as now we're able to push into English classes, which we did not do previously. That's new this year and last year. Improved collaboration amongst our team, increased parent communication. So we've added a program to our district called Talking Points, where the EL teachers can write in English, and it goes to the parents in Spanish, the parents can write in Spanish, so back in English. It's mostly done over text message. That has dramatically increased the amount of communication that those parents are having with us. So that has been really helpful for them. We have sought to work with the teachers. You can imagine teachers are a little bit stressed. Our attendance there hasn't been great, but we have been offering some things for classroom staff. And then we've been continued participating in the CISA 6 Title III network. We also, and kind of add this to this, we also will be taking students to Moraine Park Technical College in early November for a field trip where they can learn kind of about the college setting, try to increase the rate of students we have going out of our EL program into post-secondary schooling. So they'll be taking a day with Beth and participating in college sessions in collaboration with CISA 6. And then we're hoping to have in-person family days again this year. So we're looking at our first one being on November 1st. So hopefully I'll have some things to report on that next month. Places we've identified needing to continue to grow our program. We need to be more cognizant of collecting writing samples and applying the rubrics so students can grow in that area. Obviously, speaking is an area we're continuing to work on. Classroom teacher collaboration. One area we've noticed specifically at the middle school level, but also at the high school level, is getting them access to engaging reading material that's high interest but at their level. And so that's something we've been working on securing, but we still need to do more of. We're working on getting curricular resources to support language instruction, and then also looking at technology and programming specific to the needs of our newcomers. So any questions? So a lot of things similar, but also some things that we're trying to continue to push forward in that program.
Sarah, just quick, why Moraine Park? Do they have a specific program that caters to EL students, or was that a CISA decision?
CISA, yeah, so CISA organized, I think last year it was reflected like that, so I think it's
Oh, okay.
going through different colleges, but they offer that as part of our consortium. We don't have to pay, the students don't have to pay. Actually, parents are invited to attend. I'm not sure we'll have any, but kind of a neat opportunity for them to participate in.
We do have a lot of regional students that take advantage of dual credit at Fox Valley Tech in the program. Sometimes if their parents involved, they force it.
Sierra, for the increase in the staffing, is that going to come from the title funds for that, or is that going to come from district funds for increasing, do we have money to play with?
So we didn't increase, we increased staffing by repurposing someone per day. So I think in terms of where we're paying her out of, it's the same. Cindy and I have been working on kind of reshuffling a little bit of that, so we can take advantage of the bilingual bicultural aid that the state gives us, which is a partial payback on the English teacher salary. So we are navigating that to get some of that funding reciprocated back to us. But it's nice for the parents and the students to have kind of a consistent person of contact at the high school. And she has a extremely hard work ethic and attention to detail, and is really committed to making those students successful in what she's doing as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, very good, thank you.
Administrative reports, Tom, anything to add?
I do not.
Administrators, we will start with Jen. Okay. Doug?
Nothing at this time.
Adam? Deb?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Jim?
We're striking out.
Jewel, come on.
Teacher conferences for last week. We brought the book fair back,
All
and
right.
it was wonderful to see just the exorbitant amount of books that were being placed in the hands of kids through the book fair last week. So,
Perfect. Caitlin?
nothing to add.
Okay. Eric, come on.
Not this time.
All right. Sierra, anything more besides what you just gave us?
Yeah, I was just going to mention the Yale Family Night, but I mentioned that.
Okay, perfect. And Cindy, you're going to wrap it up for us. All right, Cindy, thank you. Consent agenda, item 1, minutes. Item 8, September 13th. Oh, sorry, student council. Oh, jeepers, sorry, I'm getting excited. Student council, everybody said no.
First, our accomplishments. Student Council organized 5 dress-up days on homecoming week. Legal Day and Spirit Day garnered the highest participation with 50% and 75% respectively. In addition to the dress-up days, Student Council organized 3 homecoming events, the first event being the pep assembly for staff and students on Friday the 24th. The assembly included the introduction of the 2021 fall sports teams, 2021 homecoming court, a staff skit, class competition games, and the presentation of the 2021 Homecoming Spirit Award, which was won by the seniors. The second event was the parade, which included 26 entries. The Wintona Police Department and the Fire Department assisted with parade logistics, and the Sindali Motors supplied trucks for the homecoming court members. Local sports teams, clubs, and the WHS marching band participated in the parade. The final event was the dance, which was held in the Fieldhouse Gym on the Saturday of the 25th. From 7 to 11 p.m., the grand march for the homecoming court was at 9 p.m.
Our blood drive was scheduled for October 6th, but it was canceled due to the community blood center's staffing shortages. We are planning on the other 2 dates as December 1st and February 9th. Our student council members will attend their second meeting this Wednesday, October 13th, during the start. Our primary focuses of the meeting will be to confirm upcoming events and projects for the remaining of this year. We will also reflect on our last homecoming and brainstorm ideas and themes for next year. Our future projects will be the community blood drives, which will be the 1st and 9th of February and December, community Christmas projects, and the district-wide dress days.
All right, thank you. Board members, anything to add? Yep. It was. Size of
Volleyball team's been watching volleyball teams, very excited for what they're doing. With volleyball. And we also had our 80 faith in your old staff. It was really nice. Well done.
Good. All right. Now we'll go to consent agenda. Item 1, minutes, A, September 13th, 2021 monthly meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ross, second by Brian. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, September 27th, 2021 work meeting. Motion by Adam, second by Karen. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, staffing. I'll entertain a motion to do item A, retirement resignation 1 and 2, and employment 1 through 3.
So move to approve 2A and B as
I'll second it. Motion by Barry, second by Jeanette. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Action items. Item 1, business and finance. Item A, approve September 21 treasurer's report.
Make a motion to approve it as printed.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Adam. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, approve the vouchers and payroll.
Approve the vouchers and payroll as printed.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Barry. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, policy. A, approve the new and revised policies, the second consideration.
So last board meeting, you had 2 packets of policies, sort of a general packet, and then another one was revising changes to Title IX regulations for protected class. So you approved first consideration. I don't know if you have any questions or comments on the second consideration of the policy.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Adam, second by Ross. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, approve the school year 21-22 Category B field trips. Item 1, Wisconsin State FBLA Leadership Conference at UW-Whitewater.
So last year we did not broach the subject because of COVID, and believe it or not, COVID's still here, and they're on the agenda. So my recommendation is to look at 1, 2, and then you have another one coming up here. And my recommendation would be to approve them, but we're going to be analyzing them right up until the last second, determining rooms, even if they'll hold them, those type of things. But I think, out of fairness to the students, it's good to get them on the docket so that they're approved, hoping that things are going to improve, and then we can hold them. That's my recommendation.
I'll make a motion to approve 2B, 1, and 2.
I'll second. Motion by Ross, second by Jeanette. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, approve the 2021-22 Category C Midwest Softball Field Trip, first consideration.
So Mr. Bubb was here, it seems like 10 years ago, but I think it was like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And he was asking about a field trip to Florida. There was some concern about the distance and the time and all those things. So we had asked him if he was going to entertain such a field trip, that he look at the Midwest and do that. So that's what he's looking at. I don't think he has one, Mr. Vaughn, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he has one solidified yet. But he's looking at one where they would leave and go down on a Friday, play on the weekend, be back on a Sunday, either Indiana, Illinois, something of that sort. It would be overnight, but again, it's what we asked him to do 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago. So I would make a recommendation, again, that it be approved, and again, we have some details to work out to make that happen. And it'll have to come back for second consideration.
So at the time of his initial presentation, if I recall correctly, we had some concerns about how it was going to be funded, who was going to raise the funds. There was some funds that kids had graduated. They didn't get the money back. That was, but I guess the concern I remember that I know I had was somebody that can't afford to go still gets to go, who pays for it. That'll all get worked out when.
Sure, and that can be before we bring it back to second consideration. As you said, I know that within the next item D, there's a fundraising portion. that is connected to this. But those have been the questions we can answer for you.
Because those details were pretty loose when we had that
So
presentation.
we would have those detailed for second consideration.
You got it. Okay. Sir Vaughn will work on that. Getting details of like how we make sure everybody can go.
It's through fundraising, and once you use your activity account, you can't, per WIA, you have to provide opportunities for everybody. You can't just say you can go, you can't go. And correct me if that's what the why we changed from a 60 to a 21 account? That's part of it, yeah. That was part of it, so when you switch your accounts from there. So anybody that is on, again, it doesn't mean it has to be JV kids. It's the varsity, because it is essentially a varsity trip.
So your athletic budget already contains provisions for this?
It is not through our athletic budget, it's through their 21, which is their activity account. So when you talk about the card raising money, that is where it goes.
So you won't have JV kids doing a fundraiser for the varsity kids?
No.
Okay.
I mean, they do the fundraiser as a group, but all that money goes into one account.
And then varsity spends it?
Well, they spend it on, like I said, they spend it on multiple things. It's not just.
Yeah, that's just what I think what I would like to.
I don't know if, again, Cindy, if I speak out, please let me know, but I don't think you can divide that up, because when you do a fundraiser, you do everything as a team. So when they put up the dugouts, they use all of that money for, not all of it, but they used money from their activity account for that. So I don't know how you can divide it and say, well, you can use dugout, you can't. Because
And I think, in my opinion, the dugout's totally different than my JV kid fundraising, so a varsity kid could spend the money and go to St. Louis.
And they use, I guess that's, if you would like to break, I could break it down when I talk to Coach, but I could
I
break
just
it down.
remember there was a roster,
Yeah.
and it had like individual accounts for every kid,
Yeah.
and there were some kids that were graduated long gone, and there was balances in their name, and I just didn't understand that at all.
If we need to, with that softball account, we can figure out, well, right now we only have one team.
Okay.
I don't know what the numbers will look like, if we will have. I'll let you know, it's very hard right now to get a game, so if we're taking, Coach Butt might decide to take all 17 kids. You know, if that's what you seem fair. I just know at that time we had two different teams, and that's how we were trying to break it up.
I think the fair comparison to me deal is like the Costa Rica trip, where you raise money for yourself through the concession stand, but then whatever you don't raise, you gotta pay out of your own pocket to even it out to make sure to get there. I think that maybe what Mr. Peters is saying is like, you know, if it's 4,000 to go and I only worked like 2 concession stands, I made $1,000. Somebody else should be paying the other 3,000 for me to go. I think that's, if I correct me if I'm wrong, that's similar concept. I think that's what we're getting at is, you know, other kids aren't paying for another kid to go. If that kid didn't do their fair share of fundraising, they should be paying for that out of their own pocket.
And to your point, WIA obviously covers it. If we have someone in the district that can't afford to make up anything, how do we solve that so that player, that student athlete can go? Right? So, just some of the details around it that we didn't have last time.
Maybe it'd be good for him to come back. No? Yeah.
Well, per the second consideration, we might have to put that somewhere in writing that because we don't do the fundraiser till April.
Yeah.
So that will have to be details of what you'd like to see or.
Well, and I think part of the issue is we don't know what the trip's going to cost because we don't even know what the trip is.
We don't, right, we've already reached out, Coach Butch has reached out, I've reached out to, and right now it's becoming hard. So I guess we'll get a list of what we want to see.
I think it'd be a good general idea of what would it cost for a kid to go, so that we know what they have to raise to be able to go.
We're going to get all this before second consideration, right?
Yeah.
I move to approve the first consideration.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Adams, second by Ross. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, approve the October 21 to September 22 fundraisers.
Katie put together the grouping and then the time slots for the fundraisers. Are there any questions regarding the fundraisers?
I'm relatively new on those, and this is basically the same as past years, essentially.
Yeah, I think it's a lot less than back in the day.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely more purposeful and focused.
Also move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Barry, second by Brian. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, negotiations personnel. Item A, approve the creation of an accounting clerk position for the business office.
Cindy?
So it's become painfully clear with all of the paperwork that we now do with federal grants and state grants, that we need a third person who is helping with some of that. I find myself, there for hours beyond a day, which we all do that. I'm not complaining, but I'm not getting ahead of it. And same with Nikki, she's just keeping up. And so a few weeks ago, I had a chat with Nikki, and I said, I don't think that we have enough. We have too much to do. We need a third person. So we found I put together a job description for an accounting clerk. This would be a entry level for somebody with maybe an associate's degree in accounting, or just a lot of office experience to do some of the work that you don't have to have an accounting degree to do. Things like bank reconciliation, filing, keeping up with payroll paperwork. And so I started to put this together, and I wasn't sure what kind of a time frame, how much time we would be looking at for this position. Brought it to the finance committee the other day, and I appreciated their thoughts on it. And one of the things they said was, you're going to get what you pay for in this position. And we have always had really good, competent people, and have found that they're the ones who are the long-term employees. So what I'm suggesting tonight is probably about a $20 an hour job that would be year-round. I had thought we would start at part-time and see how it goes. However, the finance committee suggested that we put it out as full-time. So I'm still kind of falling into that, kind of wondering the person we get, what will they, it really is almost a personality thing more. Somebody who is a go-getter, they're going to be doing a lot of the same kind of work every day, but it is challenging. And we really need the help. So I don't know what else to tell you about it. If it goes to, I go here $35,000 salary and benefits. If it goes to a full-time position, I believe it would be more like $51,000 salary and benefits. And we will, at least this next year, we'll be paying for it with ESSER funds, because that's what's brought on a lot of the work that we have.
I don't know if you guys recall, even before I became superintendent, every year the auditor would say, you really need another person in the business position. And every year we didn't, because they thought they could do it without another person. And again, with all the new federal guidelines with ESSER and everything else coming down, and especially the personnel matters, that it's just becoming too much.
I'd like to add that I was an advocate of making it a full-time position with benefits. I hire people exactly like we're looking for in several markets in the area all the time. And even at the range that we're offering, they're going to be hard to come by in this labor market right now. So I would fully support starting at something like that. I don't think we're going to get a quality individual if we offer somebody $18 an hour, 25 hours a week, no benefits. Or somebody that's going to be privy to private information about the district employees, things like that. I mean, we have to safeguard that. And then we have to consider the longevity of the employees as well. I think if it's a part-time position, it's higher turnover. I think if it's a full-time position with benefits, you're gonna get a more solid person that's going to be there for several years.
I think that would be, that's here or there. I think $20 an hour, like I said, you're gonna be able to hire somebody, but don't be surprised if they find something else after a period of time. I don't see how 20 hours is gonna line up for a town, for long-term employment, but I certainly understand the need for the position.
So are you saying a 20-hour or a
$20 per hour position, long-term. I mean, I know what we go through with our staffing now and how competitive the market is out there right now, especially with the employment situation the way it is. There's so many opportunities, so
That's why I said, I agree, but at a minimum, I said, I think we're gonna have a hard time finding one even on the shoe with this, we might have to go more than this.
I think so too.
It's hard for me because I've always wanted to keep the dollars in the classroom. And so, for me to be bringing this to you, Tom had to kind of, Cindy, is it time to look at this person, you know? Because I want to be able to just do it and get it done and keep the classroom fully funded. This is part of the classroom though. If we're not getting bills paid on time, if we're not, you know, taking care of our employees and they are disgruntled or unhappy or, you know, if you don't get your check right, your teacher's going to be kind of mad, you know? And so it's really important for us to do our job right. So, for instance, on this week, it's payroll week. We started last Thursday with this one. Nikki is going to finish putting it in and checking it for the first time. I'll recheck the whole thing again, and then I'll put tabs and she'll recheck my work. It sounds like a lot of overkill and stuff, but it's important. We find things that we need to fix, and it's because you have 260 employees with 260 different HR issues. And so things just, it takes a lot of work. I'm thankful we're not doing it on green ledgers anymore. But you know, some of this stuff, it takes a human touch to make it happen.
I would make a motion to approve for the position to looking for to advertise for the position. Is that correct?
Yes.
Looking to advertise for the position. I would agree. I would approve or make a motion to approve that. And then obviously we would have to probably, upon the information you receive, see where we're at on it.
Yeah.
If it's something we have to revisit after the fact, we can't do the public process.
I'll second, but I would just like to add to for the discussion that what happens, Tom, if we don't find a contract? Are we come back to the board to approve a higher salary?
I mean, I think we can post the position. I don't think we need to put like a cap on that. I think we put it out there, see who we get. The thing we have to keep in mind is the people that are working in the office right now. What are they making?
I understand.
Yeah, right. I mean, so I think we just we have to play that dance but I would cap it in the posting. I would just put, this is what we're looking for. Let's see who we get.
Sure.
Yeah, perfect.
Have a motion.
See who's working Schmidt title like a woman.
There you go, yeah, send your guys over to me.
Yeah. I have a motion by Mary, a second by Adam. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item J, board governance. Item 1, discussion only, the WASD 21-22 COVID-19 mitigation plan.
Yeah, I know there was some information, we have it for you regarding what ifs, but I just want to make a couple statements first, because I feel like I have to now that we're 6 weeks in. Things I want you to keep in mind if you're hearing out there, okay? Society's wide open, right? There's only one place right now that's mitigating COVID in this community. It's the school district. All right, so we're testing, we're close contacting, we're quarantining. Carrie has tested probably over 600 times in 6 weeks. The reason we went to masks at school wasn't because the numbers were so high of positive contacts, but believe it or not, high schoolers have a lot of close contacts. And so we were at the realm of where she was going to have to test 60 to 80 kids the next week because of close contacts inside and outside of school. Now, if 20% of those kids end up being positive, like, we got an issue. And so that's why we had to make a quick move to masking. After tomorrow, we're not superstitious, are we, Anna? After tomorrow, we might be looking at only 4 positive cases at the high school after we bring back 4 kids tomorrow. That's amazing. We were over 20. We could be down to 4. She's got a group of kids to test this week at the high school that were close contact still. But Carrie Pronczynski alone is testing us out of COVID to reduce our numbers in this district. All right, that is not happening anywhere else in this community. Wild Rose is happening in Wild Rose, right? Okay. So when people, and this really phases me a little bit, if people are bashing the schools about decisions being made about COVID, we are a direct reflection or a microcosm of what's going on in our community. Simple as that. Most of the cases are coming from the household or from what's going on in the community. And I'm not judging. I'm not telling people how to live their lives. But it impacts the school. When that kid gets sent to school sick, and they sit by somebody, and they infect, or they are close contacts with 3 other kids, we do the work. Nobody else is out there doing the work. And we could mask everybody up, but correct me if I'm wrong, 10 kids could go to the restaurant at night, they could all sit in a booth together and all be in the car together, and 5 of those 10 could end up being positive the next day. Whose problem is it? It's our problem. Okay? So we're dealing with the problem. We're navigating through this masking, no masking stuff. We're doing the best we can. And I think we're doing a hell of a job. All right? And I think Carrie is doing an amazing job. I think she's feeling a little bit better. It was a rough couple weeks there in the middle of September. But I think she's coming back off of it a little bit. So, on Wednesday, Mrs. Johnson and Ms. Pronczynski and I are going to talk about high school masking. Because cases are coming back down, we want to get our close contacts tested. I think we're going to have to start looking at some situational masking. We have some classes where kids sit across from each other, all right? Because we have a lot of kids in the class. It is what it is. We may have to mask when they're in those classes. But when they're in the hallway, when they're in other classes, when they're doing other things, we feel like we could probably go back to the way we had. Elementary schools, middle schools, Parkside's had its fair share of cases, but they're very individualized. They're not connected to each other. All right, so you got one this grade, one this grade, one this grade, or something happens here. And so we've been able to keep tabs on that, and they don't have a lot of close contacts because middle school kids aren't hanging out together outside of school for the most part. One more story, so you can hear it. Youth soccer, youth football, varsity volleyball, varsity soccer, and the musical cast. She tested them all over a 1.5-week period because they each had a positive case amongst their groups. No positive contacts. Okay? So, I mean, there are good things in testing. You hear all these other districts say, hey, we're not testing, we'll just let you know if you're a close contact. To me, that's throwing caution to the wind. All right, we're finding out, are you positive or not? We're going to deal with that, and we'll work with your families and keep it going. We're keeping kids in school. We're having them mask up and stay in school. We're not sending them home unless they choose to go home and not mask up. I'd say 99.5% of the families are saying, hey, we'll have our kid wear a mask to stay in school if they're a close contact. So, getting a lot of cooperation. But again, we're a reflection of what's going on in our community. Simple as that. If anybody tells you different, they're not telling you the truth. There's mine. I went on the left. Haley, you can put that in the paper if you want. Put my photo right on the front. So, do I think we're going to come back down out of this? Yes. I think we're going to come back down today. So we've gone 22, 35, 31, 21, the last 4 Mondays. I look at the data probably on a 30-minute basis of positive contacts to see if we're having spread or what we're doing. I mean, we're keeping tabs on it because we're going to keep school in session. That's my ultimate goal. We were talking today about your fear about going virtual. Like, it's my fear too. And my fear every Monday morning is I'm going to get calls from the principal and we're going to have 20 staff members say, I can't make it in today because I think I've got COVID. That's like, I literally don't sleep on Sunday nights because I'm fearful that that's going to occur. And then what am I going to do? Am I going to call everybody and say, we can't have school today? So Eric's going to show you what some things we have planned. We can talk to you a little bit about what we'll be prepared to do. I've reached out to every last favor I have, Jeff Kajabowski, Clyde Simonson, Barb Simonson, Janet Hagemeyer. We got Carl Messon to come out of retirement. Alyssa Armstrong is going to start subbing. We're creating this pool of emergency subs, and I asked Jeff and Clyde, if we ever get to the chance where we're going to have to cancel school, would you be willing to come in and sub? They said yes, they would, because they don't need sub licenses, they have licenses. So we're trying to get this emergency pool of people that if something goes sideways, we're trying to keep school open. we cancel professional development, we cancel curriculum if we have it, so that we're keeping the teachers in the buildings. So we've been doing all these things on a minute-by-minute basis. I know a lot of you guys, you don't know this, I mean, we're taking care of business because we're going to keep school in session. So I told Eric, I said, this is a fear, this is a concern. What if we have to go virtual? Like, you know, you heard it, Oneida, I think Oneida Nation had to send a school in recently, they had to go virtual. Michigan just came back off of virtual. Like, we're trying to plan so far ahead that doesn't happen, but unfortunately with COVID, you don't really know what's going to occur. So Eric, I said, Eric, what do we got to do to get cameras? You know, we were all about getting hardwire cameras in the classroom. Well, to get somebody come in and do that, you know, again, it's $500,000 to do all the areas, and they weren't prepared, and they didn't know when they could do it. So Eric decided to, last week, to see what fix he could find to make it happen, and he'll tell you the cost, he'll tell you what he can get done, and he'll show you what it looks like and how it can work. Eric, thank you.
Yep. So, as Mr. Reinheimer mentioned, just with questions with synchronous and things of that nature, last year we had already set up, we had cameras with microphones that staff could attach to their Chromebooks if it went virtual, things of that nature. Some staff did it a different way. So when Tom asked me, Mr. Reinheimer posed a question to me, so I reached out to other IT directors to see what they were doing right now with synchronous or non-synchronous, and I include that in my board report. One of the districts that was out there had a pretty unique setup where they actually took the webcams and they put them up in the ceiling. And they also did the same with the Omni microphone, which is, you can hear all the sound within the room. So last week we attempted the same thing because we do have a lot of those devices already on hand from last year that we purchased. And they've been classrooms. So right here I have one of the classes in a high school. I'm just going to play a clip of it. It's about 2 minutes or so. I go around the class all the way around 360 talking about this law with the mask on. And so when you're hearing me, that's what you're hearing. I also play a video, just like if a class were to show a video, what the student could potentially see. The nice thing that I do like about this is that if a staff member, let's say they're in class and they just want to record themselves, they can do that. The staff member has all the control with this setup. I can't come in and go on my computer and see what's happening in the classroom. The staff has all the control at their computer, at their desktop. The other thing with this is that it's focused on the board, so no students are in the video whatsoever. Their voices can be heard if they have questions and things of that nature, but that would be it. So, let me just turn this down. I'm sorry for the acting. I'm not a good actor.
Allow officers to enter any location during the day to look for evidence.
I have it on my report.
Writs of assistance allowed officers to enter any location during the day to look for evidence of smuggling.
I'm trying to simulate a student just asking a question normally in class, not trying to actually speak at a loud level.
Writs of assistance allowed officers to enter any location during the day to look for evidence of smuggling. Writs of assistance allowed officers to enter any location during the day to look for evidence of smuggling.
Also changing the slide so you can see on the slide that if a student were watching or if they were recording, they could see the slide just fine. The camera will be a little bit lower from the ceiling, so it'll give a little bit more of a level look. If you play a video, it does go silent right away because the video that I picked, I just did at random. They did use a vocab word that probably was not suitable for YouTube, so I muted them all right away, and then it goes back up. What you get when you just pick a video.
So this video is
Right there. Sorry.
Certain surprising why Nurse finds it align herself with Britannicus only the nearer a step poisoned. Not after African always moved out of the palace.
After the video, it's going to show a brief shot of what it looks like in the classroom from two different views, the camera and also the microphone in the seats. So right here, that's it. And that would be it. So the thing I do like is that it's not a permanent solution, where the plan before was more permanent. Some of the issues with that plan, as well as Mr. Einheimer had spoken about, is getting them to install it, but also with the frequencies of the microphones. When you're in that many classes, mixing of them, it could cause a problem, which we were going to have to actually, one of the bigger costs was actually having a rack in every classroom to try to keep them on different frequencies. We won't have this issue because it's actually hardwired directly into the computer itself, which we avoid. We also, as we wait for our access points, if they ever get here, we avoid the wireless as well. So we're right on the hard network, which is a benefit. So the video quality is going to be there as well. So again, a staff member can use this in Google Meet to either stream it out live to a student. They could record a class with it or themselves with it. They can do a couple different things. So it was a solution that we have together. It takes us about 15 minutes or so to set up in each classroom. So we can do it relatively quick. The cost overall, again, we had 2 quotes out for about 100 classrooms. For the 100 classrooms, for us to do it through the 2 companies, it'd be roughly around $500,000 each, or if you with whichever one you went with. This solution is about $12,000, $13,000.
Do we have that equipment? How much of that equipment do we already own?
As of tomorrow, we'll have 100% of it. So we already had 55 cameras. We had about 45 snowballs. The biggest thing that we had to get was actually the 32-foot extension for the USB, so we could go through the ceiling, and then just order a few more cameras. The other nice thing I do like that I did not show in here, the camera actually does have a couple of functions with it. It can zoom in, it can zoom out, it can move a little bit from side to side, and it's all with the remote. So the teacher would have that as well. So if all of a sudden they had a student that was talking and they wanted to zoom in even closer, they could do that as well. If they wanted to zoom back out, they could. So if, Lord willing, we don't need this set up in approximately a year or 2 years, whenever it be, we can easily take it down, and there was no damaged tiles, there was nothing of that nature, so it's like it never happened, which I do like. The other thing is with sound that you heard right there, the sound is coming from the interactive board, which almost every class now, except for Riverview and Red Granite, both have about 5 boards left to be set up. The sound quality is coming from the boards themselves, which is pretty good. So we don't have a need to put any sound within the ceilings or anything like that. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Can the remote learner ask questions?
Yeah, so I sent the video out last week to staff with the Google Meet on how that can happen. Google Meet has a couple different functions now, and you can actually, with the remote learner, there's a Q&A where you can pose a question to that remote learner, and that remote learner then can channel it. So let's say they're okay being on the screen. Actually, I can have the Google Meet here and bring up the remote learner just like in a normal meeting. So when they ask a question, the class can see them, they can't see the class can actually give a response and talk with that remote learner as well if they wanted to. And so could the teacher.
Do we also have the ability, I assume we do, but the teacher is there instructing the class, running the video, zooming in, whatever, and the remote learner can pose a question, pops up on their screen, or whatever you want to do with their face on the screen if you want to do it that way. So do we have the ability then to let's just say we're going to make it, because let's face it, most kids that have been close contacted, or even the ones who have been tested positive, are asymptomatic.
Yeah.
Many of them are. They're sitting at home, bored out of their minds. They'd like to be in class. If we don't have the ability for them to be in class, maybe they don't learn quite as well. You have to get caught up afterwards and pile work on. So if we had this set up for advanced algebra, and they can sit there and listen, they can pose questions, they can write emails to the instructor afterwards, we can take attendance, right? We can make it mandatory to listen. unless there's a special circumstance, you need to attend class.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm okay talking about, but yeah.
You have the ability to take attendance to see, okay, Jimmy's online here,
Yep.
and Jimmy just asked 4 questions. Good for him.
Yep. And if, when they ask a question, actually with the Google Meet, a ding comes up, so the instructor knows, hey, I have a question. So they go right back to the monitor, they can open up the question. They could put a poll out there, they could do a lot of different things. So in that case of synchronous learning, yeah.
So have we, is the staff, obviously most of the stuff is all gonna be here tomorrow. Is the staff trained to fire this up in a worst case scenario fairly quickly?
So I would say as far as firing it up, all they have to do is plug it in.
Okay.
And the other thing as far as I sent out the training video and we've been working, that's the other, I don't want to say benefit, but of doing what we've been doing with Google Meet. Other districts have moved from, let's say, Google Meet to Zoom. Oh, we don't like Zoom, we moved to Meet. We've been 100% on Google Meet the entire time. And that was one thing that I decided, even though Zoom has many different features that this does not have, it's been consistent the whole time. So they know a lot of the features. Last week I put out a video, it's about 8-10 minutes for staff on some of the new features that Google Meet has, how they can answer questions. I did a test run with a test student and myself, going back and forth and showing staff what they could do. Realistically, as long as they know how to open up Google Meet and the USB is connected to their desktop, everything fires up. They don't have to worry about that.
Obviously, we all hope this is redundant, right? Yeah, it's stuff that we put away in 6 months and say, remember when we used to put those things in the classroom, right? But I think we always talk about people around this table, we talk about what's the best thing for the students, right? And the best thing for the students is to continue to learn. If we go way back to when we went virtual, basically went pass-fail and they all got a free pass. And we had mental health issues. I'm not saying it was wrong, but here we are a year and a half later or whatever it is, we have to look at what's the next variant, right? Or what's the next thing past COVID? And this is something I applaud, and I think it's something that the staff and the students need to just say, well, I'm not going to be in school. I know we have Schoology, we haven't talked about that, but I really feel Schoology probably has its place, but this synchronicity of this is like being in school. As close as it possibly can be to learning like traditional learning.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would also say too, as a staff member, as a former teacher, like, you can utilize this correctly as well. Like, I wouldn't teach for 45 to 50 minutes and say, hey, you're gonna watch it and just watch, don't participate. I would say, as a teacher, you could set it up your lesson and say, it's gonna be 20 minutes of, I'm gonna teach, here it is, here's the concepts, interactiveness, and then after the 20 minutes, the student can log off so they can do their work. Or they can stay logged on so they can work at the same time if they have questions. But like my niece, she's at a district right now where they did synchronous, and it was realistically, when I asked her, she said it was 7 hours of me just watching my Chromebook. And when I ask questions, I'm watching. And that's realistically not learning, that's just engagement is the biggest thing with synchronous, is you have to engage the student. And that's where I like where you're asking, and they ask a question. You ask a question of them. Could you give them a poll? Could you do something else? Yeah, you can do all that. And like you said, if they're not active, if that's not there, I mean, then you can kind of realm from there. But also, again, like if a teacher, even if the student's not there, could they even say, hey, you know what? I'm going to have a live session 3 days of the week, and I'm going to record myself on another class that's all posted here for that other recording, because it's going to be a work group thing, but I can do this and show you this. Having that application is relatively easy for them to do, to record, versus setting up a Chromebook and doing that. So.
Like Apple is right? I mean, I think that, you know, that's technology. Like Eric said, the beauty of this, I'm not doing the $500,000 to bring the fix things. You know, a new camera comes along, he can just pop that camera out, he can put the new camera in there, and we're in complete control, better sound system, better wiring, or better microphone. The alley area goes away. I think that down the road, you know, if the kids going on vacation and you know, they're like, hey, I want to keep in touch with my class and go in and out a little bit.
But I think as soon as it's human nature, as soon as we say, hey, this is available for you as an option, they're not going to do it.
Right.
Right?
The student accountability is much better
Even though they don't, I'll learn much better if I log on. Oh, I can watch the videos all tonight after my favorite TV show. They're not going to do it, and they can't ask questions. They can't listen to it.
I think real time with the teachers makes the most sense.
And mandatory.
Right, exactly right. You hold them accountable, because we know how miserably terrible virtual was, and not to mention that, the workload for the teachers. I mean, it was twice the work. In this way, the teacher's involved, they got control in the classroom, and the student has to put their effort forward. They have to be accountable for their time as well.
Now, I will say one other thing though. I mentioned in the admin meeting is when you have some of the other younger groups, that might be, my wife's a preschool teacher. I ran this by her and she's like, I'm not in one spot. I'm in 15 different spots with 50. She's like, this would be a little bit harder. She goes, but she also said like, if it were virtual setting, I'm right there doing instruction because everybody's home, not saying that would ever happen, but she's like, that would be much easier. But she's like, I would choose and pick which ones to tune in at 10 o'clock because I'm going to be right up here. And then at 1 o'clock right here. And so, but she's like, I'm always all over the place.
All the questions that I've had about this, I've always just assumed high school, maybe junior high too.
Right.
But when I see this and I talk about mandatory, I don't think about pre-K.
Okay.
Right.
I just want to.
Now it's really wasting people's time.
I think they're decent, but I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you
Something.
touch base with the kids in the morning, the little kids.
Yeah.
You know, they can get on and say, okay, here's what you need to work on during the day, and maybe let them know when you're available if they have questions to ask or things of that sort.
Yeah, and then you address the mental health piece of not being in school and kind of connect it that way. So, you know, what my initial questions were about kind of about the hardware and the training, and it sounds like as of tomorrow, we will have the hardware.
Yeah, we'll have almost all hardware. We'll start with the high school first. I have not yet, I just spoke with the administration again today. I'll be putting out an email tomorrow for staff, letting them know that we'll be in. I talked to a few staff members already about it. The few that I talked about here at the high school, they're like, yeah, that's great. I've been trying to do it this way, and my camera doesn't work, and this works even better. Like, so I anticipate that there will be pushback. Because I think it's not pushback as much as it's going to be somewhat fear of either we're going virtual, no, that's not happening.
Yeah, that's your messaging, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if
So-
we're going this way and we're going to have this ready to go, it probably won't be an option for people.
Yeah.
Right?
So I mean, that's going to be the biggest thing. So, but otherwise, any other questions for me? Good deal.
Thank you. That's great.
Item 2, discussion only, target-based grading board presentation feedback.
So on the end of September, we presented to the board, the administrators did. So here's your copy, Barry. Yeah. So again, open any feedback, just to again remind you that if it looks like you guys are comfortable, we're going to start moving forward on policy then. This is directly connected to this, and trying to get that policy to you guys by November for first consideration. Some will not be ready yet. There's some we're still working on. Those may have to come after Christmas, but again, your job will be to approve the policy that will be changed because of target-based grading.
Presentation was excellent. I think you're all in line. I think we've done a lot of years. Actually, it hasn't been a fast decision, so it's what, 4 years, 3 years, 4 years?
4 or 5.
Yeah. So it's nothing that we're rushing into. And I think, like I said, the presentation was great. I agree with where you're going for target base. It's in line with what I'm seeing in many schools. So hats off to the admin team for and the committees with us. So if there's no other discussion, then I guess we'll be waiting then for some policies to come down our way, and we'll move forward with that then.
Thank you.
Item 3, discussion only, review of the Riverview Elementary School facility study draft RFP.
So in your packet, I think maybe you have an extra copy of that. So I was able to find a facility facility study RFP from Beaver Dam and from the School District of Denmark, who I think is back there. I put together sort of the guts of it. Katie made it look nice. And then we had Tony Rennie look at it just to make sure legally there wasn't anything we were committing to or that we didn't have correctly. So he shored up just a couple of wording pieces and got it back to me. So this is for you to review. There is no approval tonight, so then in November, I'll be asking for approval unless you have some changes that you would like to see to it. And then literally the next day, Jewel and I are going to start mailing it to design engineers or architectural engineers. So again, the ultimate goal is to find your architectural engineer who will provide us with a proposal to this. And then we have timelines that are in here. And then we'll follow the timeline and determine who we want, if at all. And then once we do that, then we would negotiate with them or sign a contract with them. And then they would start taking off and doing the facility study. And then they would report back to you and with their proposal of, okay, here's what we recommend for Riverview.
So those that went on the tour of the schools, some of this we discussed when we were there. So if you're on page 3, item where it says this assessment shall include but is not limited to A, B, C, and D is what we're really looking for. And then like as Tom said, on page 4 then is the timeline that we're looking to keep to. So if you're just wondering what this is going to include, it's on page 3, the A, B, C, D pieces of it.
And sort of the next paragraph below, the one above is sort of the existing major building system components, and then the one below is operational space capacity analysis and any solutions, like Nicole said.
Okay, any discussion? We'll bring your paperwork back with you for the next meeting.
Just a question on the timeline. Have we talked to anybody, given the current scenario and situation with the contractors? Does that look feasible? Have we had anybody to comment on that? We're talking about December 13th response date, not that far away.
Right. I mean, based on the other ones that I looked at from the other RFPs, it was a pretty comparable timeline. In fact, it was even a little more time. Some of them were tighter than that from when they gave it out to that. So.
It's just knowing the current landscape that we have, does it make any sense to put in there that don't let that be the deciding factor why you don't respond? Right?
When we communicate with them, we let them know.
Right.
If that's
someone may say, listen, I don't have any time to do this.
Yeah.
I'm worried about 16 other things right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's because we're talking about, you're going to send it out
on November 9th.
Give them a month?
Yeah, to respond. And I would say too, I mean, a lot of the firms that I'm looking at, I mean, there's some pretty major firms that I think have a lot of workers. You know,
They had
I'm
departments
not
on
looking
this.
at pop, I'm looking at Myron, Bowles, C.G. Schmidt, the one that did the courthouse, or is looking at the courthouse, Samuel's group out of Wausau. But again, when I was going to call one of them and say, hey,
maybe ask them, is this fine? They might say, no problem. We have a team that does that, we can get back in 2 weeks. Then my concern is not that.
But I agree with you, I don't want to get none back.
Right.
You know, now we're. And I think we, right here, it says, in the paragraph below Ross, it says the Wintona School District reserves the right to modify the schedule as needed. So we can change it. We can modify the dates. Good. It's exciting, I think.
Yep.
Item 4, discussion only, legislative update.
All right. I got to talk to our Senator Baldwin today. It was wonderful to get back to me on information. She said there's not a lot in the coffer right now. They do have multiple bills that have some support. Most likely, though, every one other than one that she singled out will probably get vetoed at the governor's desk. The one involving curriculum was one that seemed to have more overwhelming support. And that was based on response to CRT as well. That may have some interest from the governor to be signed. The only other item we discussed was any kind of importance for the district would be any COVID mandates that are in the hot state employees have not been yet mandated. May happen depending on numbers on what could happen, but they have not seen anything mandated. And then as far as businesses of 100 employees or more, the larger businesses may see some stipulations or mandates depending on numbers and size of companies, maybe masking, maybe testing, maybe both. That's all down the road. There's nothing definitive yet on all that. Other than that, there's really been really no new issues. Same thing, just reworked.
All right, item K, board suggested future agenda items.
This is not a future agenda item, but I just want to make a comment. When I hear Tom's voice a little bit louder and maybe a half octave higher, I think it shows his passion. And I don't read all the comments that obviously maybe questions you get. I see some of them on Facebook, but obviously none of those people were signing up and coming here and sharing their opinion with us. So I mean, my personal opinion, I don't think anybody around this table disagrees with this, is from a mechanics side of things, we're doing exactly what we do. Keeping the kids in school, and we got a bunch of challenges thrown at us every single week. And that's great that we have a trend line that may be showing some positive movement, but we're prepared for it to go the other way. And it's so easy for someone to sit behind their keyboard and question something and without a solution. And we're in the business of coming up with solutions, and obviously our admin team is too. But thank you for your passion, Tom. And thank you for being very, very clear earlier.
On the social media front, to echo Ross there, if you want to Google Mike Gundy, Twitter tonight, watch it about 19-20 seconds, it's worth it. Yeah, the community average, I just looked today, the 7-day average is 75%-ish higher than when we went to virtual last October.
A year ago today?
Yes.
Hybrid.
So, 75% higher in the community. We're still in school and trending downward. So, yeah, we're doing the right thing.
And I did not receive one phone call regarding the high school testing.
Good.
Or you.
Yeah, so maybe we're a little insulated because obviously other school districts, other school boards are putting up with a lot of things. But prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Well, I think you guys have we've been very transparent. Like, I think right up front, we said what we were going to do, and we haven't backed away from it. And if we have to change course, like Ross said, we'll change course.
Future agenda item, I'd like to have Tom and Cindy work together and maybe go to finance if the board would be okay. We haven't done a Christmas gift card to all of our staff. Last year was, I think, crazy, and it kind of maybe slipped our minds and so forth. I think it's been a while, and I think it's something that we should entertain. So if the board would be in agreement for Tom and Cindy to kind of look at some options and then present it to the finance, I think that we should think about that this year.
Country.
Yeah, I agree.
Country and
A lot of that language.
dinner.
Nourishment as well as that.
None of this truck, right? You have 600 in this truck, right?
Right. So our next meeting is actually on the WASD budget hearing at 6:30 p.m., the annual meeting, and then at 6:45, and then a special meeting at 7 o'clock, and it's on October 25th, so the last Monday of this month, in the Wintona High School Library. And then our monthly meeting will be on November 8th at, we're granted for right now, and we'll see what the numbers are as far as space things we might.
I think we'll be good there because we have plenty of
There's a
space.
gym.
in the
Yep,
gym.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.